Hey gang, Wonder Rob here.
And Shop's here too.
This podcast is part of the Geek So To Speak network.
Visit geeksotospeak.com for our full podcast lineup.
Welcome to the Holdo Maneuver podcast, part of the Geek So To Speak network. I'm Mark.
And I'm Vactor. We're two hard-working dads trying to immerse ourselves into Star Wars and fit it into our very busy lives.
If this is your first time listening in this short-form Star Wars podcast, each week we'll share our thoughts on different topics from a galaxy far, far away. Hey Vactor, why does Princess Leia keep her hair tied up in buns?
I don't know. Why does she?
So it doesn't hang so low.
Ooh!
Alright everyone, so this is episode 6 of our podcast, so we thought, what better way to do this episode than to introduce ourselves. Wait 6 episodes and do that. So I'm going to let Vactor take it off and ask him his experience and what introduced him to a galaxy far, far away. And then after that, after I'll share my story, and then we'll talk about some news.
Oh yeah, just the way I like it. Star Wars news delivered hot and fresh. But first, a little story time. I can remember Star Wars always being there, but the time that I actually got into the storyline and understood what was going on, because before that, it's just random flashes of lightsabers and Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, knowing Darth Vader was Luke's father, all these pop culture things that have seeped in over the years. But I didn't know the storyline. I didn't know what was going on until one day, I remember in middle school, or no, I'm sorry, elementary school, I got sick and I stayed home, and my mom took me to Blockbuster Video and we rented the Back to the Future trilogy on VHS and the Star Wars trilogy on VHS. And it was a very good day for me to be sick. I watched all the movies back to back to back. And that, I think, is when I fell in love with Star Wars, and I've been a fan ever since. It was, I think, just watching the trilogy all back to back in a row that created my love for Star Wars, and I just consumed it from there, got more and more into the storylines. I kind of wish I had read a little bit more of the novels when I was younger, but anything video game related, I was all a part of. Anything that was... There wasn't any at the time. There was no animated shows that were on. They had the droids animated stuff, and they had the Ewoks live action movies, but not a whole lot for my specific age range. There's a ton more now, but back then it was slim pickings. And at that time, we didn't know when we were going to get more Star Wars content, because episodes 4, 5, and 6 had wrapped up, and there was like rumors in the background about, oh yeah, George wants to do a trilogy before and a trilogy after, but there wasn't anything confirmed. The prequel trilogy wasn't confirmed until years later. So at this point, I was just kind of trying to scrounge up any Star Wars content I could. So I remember actually one time we were flying to Japan, and it was a 10-hour flight, and my mom bought me this encyclopedia of Star Wars, and it had just definitions. The Clone Wars was the first time I ever heard about the Clone Wars, besides Obi-Wan mentioning it, was in that book. And I was like, whoa, Clone Wars. And I looked up all the information about it. So that encyclopedia, I can't remember the name of it at this point, but it was a black paperback. I remember that. And just looking up all the information and saying, oh man, it would be great if we actually got a movie of all this stuff. And then we did. So that was...
I'm pretty sure I have that book. I think it's in my son Patrick's room.
I would like to take a look at that.
It's like a thinner...
It was...
A thinner black paperback book?
As a kid, my memory of it was that it was fat, but it very well could have been thin, and I'm just remembering it wrong. But it was just every Star Wars term you can think of is in there. And now we have like the visual guides and stuff, which are cool. But back then, it was just no pictures. I was imagining everything, and that's what got me into Star Wars, was just kind of, like I said, just watching them on VHS and then wanting to learn more about the universe.
Very cool. I think what I can recall, my first steps into a bigger world was with my cousins. I know that you were in Japan a lot when you were younger, but
Yes.
with me, I want to say at that time TBS had the rights to the films.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
I would watch like the original trilogy at that time with my cousins whenever it would. I remember having like these sleepovers with my cousins, and we'd watch. I can specifically remember watching Return of the Jedi on TBS with them. It was like the original version. It was before special editions came out, and I remember just like sitting there on the couch drinking milk that my grandpa had put some blue dye into it, so that we were drinking blue milk while we were watching it.
Yeah.
So that's like one of my first memories of Star Wars. And then a few years after that was around 1997 was when they released the special edition films. I'm actually looking at it. We're both on camera to ourselves, but just off screen for me. This is very good for an audio medium. I still actually have my plastic popcorn bucket from the Star Wars Special Edition trilogy that I got.
So you saw it in the theater?
Yeah, that was my first time seeing a Star Wars movie in the theater. I didn't get to see A New Hope when that came out in January of '97, but I did get to go see Empire Strikes Back in theaters. So that was Empire Strikes Back was the first Star Wars movie that I ever got to see in a movie theater. So in the way those rank up, I think that's a pretty first good Star Wars film to get to see in a movie.
Yeah. I actually didn't get to see the special editions in the theater, but when they came out in that gold VHS box set, I got that. And for some reason, I didn't remember hearing about them being in the theater. So when they came out on VHS and they had a bunch of behind the scenes stuff about what they added, that to me was probably one of my very first special edition, or I should say behind the scenes things where I got addicted to extras and DVD, what became DVD extras. So watching that and seeing how George Lucas, this is what I originally planned, this is what I wanted, that was like catnip for me. I was in heaven. So I remember watching those special editions over and over again. And then in 1999, I remember the Phantom Menace. I was in Japan this whole time. From 97 to 99, I was living in Japan on a military base. And we didn't get a lot of American content. But when episode 1 came out in the theater, the line was down the block.
Oh, wow.
Because it was just one theater. There wasn't like a multiplex. So that was a very good experience for me. I remember watching episode 1 in the theater and having just watched the special editions on VHS. So that was a very good time for me.
Nice. I remember that was like one of the first times I just got like fully immersed and obsessed with Star Wars, which like I wanted like everything to do with it, all the toys, everything. I remember that was
episode 1.
Yeah, when episode 1 came out.
Yeah.
That like Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut, since they're all owned by the same company. I remember that commercial where it had like the Pizza Hut lady, Colonel Sanders, and then the Chihuahua from Taco Bell. They were all like trying to team up, and it was playing the Star Wars music.
You're a real colonel, right?
Play Defeat the Dark Side. Get a game medallion and you could win one of millions of prizes instantly. Even a Star Wars speeder. Only at Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC.
I remember, I think you talked about that you had, because Pizza Hut did the cups that had those really big top.
Yes.
Like the characters on top, and I think you said you had like the Darth Maul one.
Yes, that was one of my favorite pieces of memorabilia for a long time because I fell in love with just the look of Darth Maul. I actually got the contacts, the Sith eyes, and I wanted a double-bladed lightsaber, but at the time, it was just the plastic toys. There wasn't anything like what we have now with the very nice replicas of the lightsabers. But I never got the double-bladed lightsaber, but I just liked that it was different. It was something that I hadn't seen before, and I just liked his tattoos, his face tattoos. I remember running down the hallway of my high school and having that Darth Maul topper as if it was an action figure. I remember just like, hey, I'm hitting you with my lightsaber, doing that to other kids. So yeah, I remember that. That was probably my favorite piece of memorabilia. I remember that Jar Jar tongue lollipop thing.
Oh yeah, those things are weird.
And I remember just laughing at it. I never like bought one, but I just remember thinking that's kind of strange.
I remember going back to the Taco Bell stuff, is that I even asked one of the employees at Taco Bell, because they had like special shirts that had Darth Vader on them and said something about, or actually maybe they had these toys when the special edition came out, maybe. Yeah, because I remember I had all those, because they had like the split face Yoda on one side and Darth Vader on the other side. It was like a mirror.
Yeah.
And then they had like that push toy that had like the Death Star blow up and the floating Cloud City. Yeah, so
I remember that.
So I guess Taco Bell got in there early with doing the Star Wars stuff. I remember when Revenge of the Sith came out, Burger King did all those toys too, and I got all of those toys. I made sure they had a ton of them too. I made sure I got every single one of them.
I did too. Yep.
But yeah, so needless to say, we were very cool kids and very popular when we were in school because of our likes for Star Wars.
Yeah.
I also
actually, Episode 3 was what really kicked my fandom into overdrive, because before that I considered myself like a casual fan, and for whatever reason, Episode 3 was the one. I think it was because I was like, oh, this is going to be the last one. But also just because I enjoyed that movie so much, it just set I think the level that I'm at today to be doing a podcast about Star Wars was started with that Episode 3. That was when my joy and my excitement for Star Wars just rose to another level. So Episode 3, no matter what people say about the prequels or, not enjoying things as much as the originals, Episode 3 and just the prequels in general, after we've gotten the Clone Wars animated series, we've gotten all the things after it, I think the prequels in general have kind of pushed the Star Wars, the mythos even further. If we didn't have the prequels, I think it would be a very different thing today than what we do. So 100% the Episode 3 and Episode 1, because I wasn't a huge fan of 2 when it came out in the theater, although for some reason I saw it the most. Out of all the prequels, I saw 2 the most. I don't know why, but definitely, like I said, 3 just has a special place to me because it reignited my love of Star Wars.
You just wanted to go home and rethink your life.
Death sticks.
Yeah, I remember Episode 3 for me too. If people follow us on Instagram, they may have already seen this, but that's where I went in deep on my Star Wars love. I still actually had hair at that point, and I grew my hair out to be like basically the same as Hayden Christensen's Anakin hairdo, and I even freaking got a perm, more or less, so that it would be that it would be that same kind of like wavy like hairstyle he had. Yeah, that's how committed I was to it. Me and my wife got a character done at that time that we still have hanging in our bedroom, where I'm Anakin when I had the long hair, and then she's Padme, and she was pregnant with our son at that time. So I always say that to Patrick that he's actually in that character too, because she has her hands on her stomach. So I think it's kind of funny in that character, because we're supposed to be in Mustafar, and you see like the volcano in the background. I'm wearing like the whole Anakin get up, and she's got the Padme outfit on from like basically the end of the movie when she comes to Mustafar. But what's funny is that the dude drew the sunglasses on that she had on her too, so it's like Padme's wearing sunglasses on Mustafar. And that was also at that same year. It was the first time I went to a Star Wars convention. I went to a Star Wars celebration in Indianapolis that year.
Nice.
And we had only been dating for a few months at that time, but she actually went with me. We drove all the way from New York State over to Indiana to go to the Star Wars convention. And I was like, all right, she's willing to go to a Star Wars convention with me. She had never seen any of the Star Wars movies at that point. They were playing the Star Wars movies at like different nights there. So we went and watched them while we were there. We got to see like different panels that had like Rick McCallum and Hayden Christensen on them, and
nice.
I ended up getting to meet Peter Mayhew, R.I.P.
Hey.
He was really nice, and then randomly met Jake Lloyd, young Anakin himself. That was the picture I posted on our Instagram a few weeks back on his birthday.
Yeah.
And that's also where I met Billy D, or I guess didn't really meet Billy D. That was a weird thing where you had to hand whatever you were getting signed off to somebody else. You walked in this line that was then 10 feet further away from him. You walked down that line and then back up to the table to get your thing back from him.
Imagine if he was doing this during COVID and they had those plastic shields up. Like, this is before any of that. Billy D still didn't want to get near the fans. That's interesting.
Yeah, you need to tell somebody else your name. You couldn't tell him. You basically had no interaction with him. I don't know. So
that's weird.
Maybe he was having a bad day, but like that always put like this like weird kind of memory of Billy D. Williams in my head. So whenever I see him at anything else or in anything else, I just remember that. So
yeah, it's crazy. You never know what your interactions like. As a famous person, you know, you're used to every day people coming up to you, but those people that are coming up to you, that's going to be their most likely only interaction with you, and it's going to leave an imprint on them, as Billy D did with Mark. So if you're a famous person listening to this podcast, be nice to people every chance you get.
Oh yeah. And then I guess kind of you and I, we can kind of talk about like more present day stuff is nowadays, like when I wish they had kept doing it, but they were starting to re-release the prequels in theaters.
In 3D.
Yeah, in 3D, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years ago now. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to bring Patrick every year when they release one each year. Because I think they were going to do that leading up to episode 7 coming out or something like that.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
But it got the cool 3D glasses for it. They looked like Anakin's pod racer goggles. And I was like, all right, next year we'll go see Attack of the Clones in 3D. And then that was Phantom Menace was the only one they ever released in 3D.
Yeah, that's crazy. I wish they had continued with that. I probably would have. I think you had asked me to go, and I was like, I'll wait for episode 3, and then never got episode 3.
I still think that if every time I see episode 3, that there's that shot of Mace with his like lightsaber like pointed right at the screen. I was like, man, that would have been so awesome in 3D. I would have been like, oh, I'm gonna get stabbed in the face by Mace Windu.
Yeah. But I think right now is a very good time. I think it's one of the best times to be a Star Wars fan, just because of the amount of content that's coming out right now. And I talk about this too, I think, on the Technological podcast. If you're interested, it's a very good time to be a Star Trek fan as well, because on Paramount Plus, they're just putting out a ton of content, ton of live action and animated shows. And that's the same thing for Star Wars on Disney Plus. Not only do you have the back catalog of all the movies, but all of the animated shows that have been coming out are on there. They've got the Lego Star Wars and the Freemaker Adventures for the younger set. They've got, the biomes and the ASMR type of things. It's like, and ManDeLorean and Boba Fett, and we're getting 3 more series this year. All of these things are, very, I should say, they're all a great representation of different aspects of the Star Wars universe. And not only that, we're getting them in multiple mediums. We're getting a Lego Skywalker Saga video game a little bit later this year, actually next month. And we've also got some great comic books that are coming out, which I really want to get caught up on. There's the High Republic and all the stuff that's going on in just the regular print novels. So ton of stuff is coming out right now for Star Wars, and it's just a great time to be a fan.
Yeah, and like you're saying, they've even added like some of that older stuff to Disney Plus too. Like they put the animated Boba Fett section from the holiday special on there. They have the Genndy Tartakovsky micro series That was originally
which I love.
the version of Clone Wars that we got before the Dave Filoni series.
Yeah,
I remember.
I love that series.
I remember getting those on DVD, and like you would see HD versions online years after that, and I was like, oh, maybe they'll release these on Blu-ray. But then, I mean, now they have them on there, so it's. And I remember those were like little like 30-second like snippet things that they showed in between like commercials on Cartoon Network originally.
Yeah.
So it was nice when that did eventually come out, edited together, and you got to see like, oh, that's how Anakin got the scar in his eye.
Right.
But
although now it's not
now it's
canon, it's Legends. But at the time, that was cool. Seeing something that happened in between the movies affect the movies.
Yeah.
And that's why I think what we're trying to see with a lot of Mandalorian stuff, things that connect to, let's say, Ahsoka in live action, or, things that they bridge the gap between the two mediums and say, hey, everything is in the same world. I think that's what the MCU has done, is kind of got fans excited for a connected universe, seeing all these things put together across different mediums. So Star Wars is having a very good couple years here, and the Disney, the what's it called, Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel just opened up. We've got Batuu, the Rise of the Resistance, like all the rides that are coming out. There's just a ton of stuff. Like I said, it's great to immerse yourself in Star Wars right now.
Yeah, and speaking of that, and going right on from Disney Plus, I guess this is a good segue into going from our backstories to talking about the new Star Wars news that we got.
Oh, yeah.
And speaking of that crossover and that whole kind of expanded universe that we're getting, is a little bit of news that we got for the Bad Batch Season 2 is that Omega will be older.
Is it going to be the same actress and they pitch her voice down, or are they hiring a whole new actor?
Yeah, so this news that we got about Omega in Season 2 came from the composers, basically saying that there's going to be a time jump large enough for Omega to be older than she was in her last appearance. And the composers who worked on the Clone Wars and Rebels, in addition to work on Bad Batch, had to remain tight-lipped about their work on the second season, but we're still able to talk about how the experience has been so far. So they shared that the reason, in fact, was really cool, in addition to carefully adding that Omega will be a little bit older than Season 1, but still not a lot.
Yeah, that's going to be good. I can't wait. I thought the first season was great, and I'm very much looking forward to the second season. I actually did look it up. It is the same voice actor, Michelle Ang. So I don't know if maybe she's doing something with her voice, or if they're going to artificially pitch it down. But yeah, that's going to be interesting no matter what, because when you're that young, like she was in the first season, there's only so much you can do with her as far as like action and getting involved. A little bit older, and now we can start to see her getting, really in the weeds.
Yeah, it should be interesting, and then see if we, with all like the kind of setup and different interactions we got from like the Clone Wars and Rebels within that first season, and even like a little bit of Book of Boba Fett connections with Fennec in there too. It should be interesting to see what we get in Season 2 of the show.
Oh yeah.
Now, I know you and I are both excited about this, especially from your sick day that you had many, many years ago, and experiencing these two things together that same day. Now they intersect together again.
Well, the Doc himself, Christopher Lloyd, has been added to the cast of Season 3 of The ManDeLorean. As Mark alluded to, he was in the other series that I was able to rent on that faithful day, Dr. Emmett L. Brown from Back to the Future, and just had a long, illustrious career. He's been in a ton of things. Star Trek 3, Taxi. More recently, he was in Nobody with Bob Odenkirk, and the George Clooney directed The Tender Bar. So very interested to see what his character is in The Mandalorian Season 3. He's a little bit older now, so probably not going to be doing a whole lot of action, but I wonder if he's going to be a mentor to Mando, if he's going to be, something, a roadblock in his way? What is the role that he's going to play in season 3?
Yeah.
We don't know specifically, but just as him as an actor is just going to be a nice addition to the cast.
Yeah, and do you think he's going to be humanoid or more of an alien like he was in Trek, where he was a Klingon in that and a bad guy, or do you think he'll be a good guy in this?
I think he's going to be human, just like they had Michael Biehn in the first or season 2. I think they're going to do it just not a lot of prosthetics. Let his face speak for himself, and whether he's a good guy or not, that I think is up to chance, because he can play both as an actor. You know, he's got the talent to play either side, but I'm just interested to see how they use him, how they utilize him. Just being a little bit older, like I said, than he was in the movies that we love him in. And when you get a little bit older, and I'm seeing this right now with Patrick Stewart in Picard. It's just a little bit like they talk a little bit slower. They need a little bit more time to continue the scene. So I just want to see how Christopher Lloyd is looking. He looked pretty good in Nobody.
Yeah.
So let's see how he's doing in Mandalorian.
Definitely. And I think maybe it could even be similar to like Max von Sydow in Force Awakens, but maybe.
Oh, right.
But maybe
right.
Hopefully more screen time.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm definitely really excited. Like you, Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. So the fact that we're getting Christopher Lloyd in the Star Wars universe is very, very exciting to me.
Oh,
and speaking of a Kathleen Kennedy produced film that Christopher Lloyd was in, we're going to talk about George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy accepting the Milestone PGA honor from Steven Spielberg recently. Did you get a chance to see any like the video from the honor at all? Like George Lucas gave a light ribbing to Spielberg about like different filmmaking.
Yeah, I did not. I do want to see that. I was looking at the link that we have from the Hollywood Reporter, and I didn't get a chance to see the actual video. But anytime you get Lucas and Spielberg and that whole crew that grew up together, I like to see the back and forth between all those guys. It's always interesting and fun for me.
Yeah. I one of the things I thought was cool is in here it was said, I feel even in this room we need to define what producers do. Producers do whatever the hell it takes. Courage and imagination and utter lack of intimidation. The producer needs to know everybody's jobs and not how to do them, but how they are done well, which is what makes George and Kathy so deserving of this recognition, which is what Spielberg said to them both. But what was funny that Lucas said to him is basically he was giving him kind of crap a little bit for not being on the side of wanting to move on to digital filmmaking and wanting to continue with actual film. So it was kind of like a fun to watch, like, because you can tell that they're still really good friends. So it was fun to watch that kind of back and forth banter that they're having. So I would highly suggest looking up the video from this honor. It's really great, especially if you're a fan of Kathleen Kennedy and Spielberg and Lucas.
Yeah, and that's the 33rd Producers Guild Awards.
Yes. And it's always good to see George Lucas nowadays too, especially with him basically not really being super involved with Star Wars anymore, so he's less in the public eye. So it's cool to see him when he does come out and do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the last little bit of news that we're going to be talking about this week, which I think both of us are pretty excited for, is that the Cal Kestis Legacy lightsaber hilt is going to be available at Galaxy's Edge very, very shortly. As of this recording, we're recording on March 23rd of 2022. It's going to be available on March 25th, 2022. So when you're listening to this, it may already be out if you waited. But I still haven't gotten to go to Galaxy's Edge. Later this year, November, I'll finally be able to go there, and then we can do a whole episode about, because I'm actually going to be, strangely enough, even though we live closer to Disneyland, I'm going to be going to the Disney World Galaxy's Edge. So we can actually maybe compare notes later this year when we talk about, you talk about Batuu West, and I'll talk about Batuu East, and see how they compare at that point. But yeah, we both played this video game, so are you excited about this lightsaber coming to the parks and being available like that?
Yeah, because I actually like this hilt. Even if I didn't like the video game or the character of Cal Kestis, this is a hilt that I would actually choose. And it's the design at the top, which kind of looks almost like a U shape where the blade is coming out. That part I think is super cool, and it makes it interesting. And then on the bottom of the hilt, it kind of looks like it's destroyed. The cabling is coming out. So I actually really like this lightsaber, and if it wasn't for Obi-Wan's hilt, I would actually probably get this one. If I did one of the pre-built ones, I did a customization. We'll talk about that in our Galaxy's Edge video, but I customized my own. But if I was buying a pre-built one, it would, like I said, Obi-Wan would be number one, and then this Cal Kestis would probably be number two. So I like this design a lot.
Yeah, and shout out to our YouTube channel where I actually, in one of our playlists, I put your video of you making your lightsaber at Galaxy's Edge there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can also watch Vactor's video of going to episode 3 on there too, so you can see a young Padawan Vactor being very excited for Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
But what's kind of cool about this too is I tweeted it from our Twitter account for Holdo. Is that, hey, we got Cameron Monaghan, we got his lightsaber now. Cal Kestis in live action when?
Ooh-wee.
Because he's like even in costume in these pictures that they posted too. So he's like, just film something. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for him to show up in like either Obi-Wan Kenobi, or because we don't know if it was actually BD-1, but we did get a BD droid in Book of Boba Fett, so should be interesting.
I want to see it.
Yeah. Now this week, I was gonna suggest a different that was from Star Wars, but I'm gonna go back to and say, just check out that Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC commercial. I'll find it and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for us this week. I think that was a good conversation, sharing our history of the galaxy far, far away for a young Vactor and a young Mark.
Yeah.
So with that, guys, if you want to leave us a review on the podcast catcher of your choice, if it allows you to do so, it helps us out a lot. You can find the show on social media, Twitter at HoldoPod, on Instagram at HoldoPod. We're also on Facebook at HoldoPod. You can search for the Holdo Maneuver on YouTube. We should be one of the first things that show up. Maybe throw a podcast in there too, and it'll definitely show up. We'll have links for all this stuff in the show notes too. And then individually, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at my first and last name, which is just Marc Vibbert, MarcVibbert. And then you can follow Vactor at his last name, Bactor, on Instagram and Twitter. You can email us at holdopod@gmail.com. And then for all things geek, you can check out geeksotospeak.com, including the rest of the podcast network. Geek So to Speak with Wonder Rob, Schaff, and Vactor. And then my Cinemark segment there. And then you got Technological with Schaff and Vactor. And then, of course, last but not least, the Sandbox Gamers, again, with Vactor, because this guy doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
And Wonder Rob and Jeff W. But that's it for us this week. And Vactor, what do we say at the end of every episode?
Thank the maker.
The galaxy's most legendary heroes, fearsome villains, and coolest vehicles. Now available to take home and play with at Pizza Hut, KFC, and Taco Bell. Right now, at participating Taco Bell locations, you can get one of these cool Star Wars Episode 1 collectible toys, one in every Taco Bell kids meal you buy.
The Cantina music. That was Wizard.